That's how it ended. He apologized for being too weak. Chris was supposed to be the hero, but not him. The girl asked Evan not to say that. After all, they had all done their best. If Sir Chris had learned fencing a little earlier, he could have been a 10-star hero. If that happened, wouldn't the two of them then be able to stop the end of the world? With his mad talent for instantly learning anything, he was able to leave behind a huge legacy of achievement. It all started one day when he was 20 years old. He escaped from his cursed clan and dreamed of success working in the back alleys. Then the Age of Destruction began, the invasion of the Demon King, Carnage, into the magical empire. A guy saw an ad, recruiting a group to travel with a hero. That's right, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He will achieve greatness, and when the war is over, he will enjoy wealth and honors to the fullest. However, they ultimately failed, and the rule of light ended up in the hands of the Demon King. If only he could do it, he would want to turn back the clock to make Sir Chris a hero. Even if they turned back time, he wasn't going to do it again. One lifetime of suffering was enough. And anyway, there's no point in dreaming about it now. Not now, when this world is about to end. That's how it ends in the next life, not that there's one. But if it does, he hopes to be born the son of some rich family. That was his parting thought. After that, the guy was born in the body of a young magical empire master. This place is a dark magic clan. As the ominous punishment implies, it is one of the 12 clans supporting the magical empire. As far as the guy could figure out, he'd regressed 15 years back in time. 5 years back to the beginning of the Age of Destruction. He thought he'd experienced everything in his past life. He didn't expect to see demonic monsters tending the garden. And on top of that, the guy knows who the bastard in the reflection is. Christian van Baron Cassar. Chris asked, with that noble Wong, "Is he a branch lineage spewer?" She replied, "That's right, he's quick as always." Khazar County is a branch of the Baron County family or the Dark Magic Clan. Chris asked, "So is it a weak clan?" She said no. Even though it's a branching family, it has a good standing in the Dark Magic Clan. Not to mention how rich they are. Doubt there's anyone in the Mage Empire who doesn't know about them. Chris has heard they have 2 potential successors, but the older of the sons, Christian, is a real hoot amongst the bastards. He's always looking for an adventure on his ass. Count Khazar finally gave up on him. It's old news now, though. Chris asked why, had he reformed? She replied that no, he had just been killed by his own relatives. He just wanted to be the son of an ordinary rich family. Why did he have to regress there? Why did he, a bastard doomed to die? Chris stood at the mirror and didn't understand what he should do now. He woke up in this body that has the same name as the one he wore 3 days ago. And Christian will be dead in 2 days. The fact that he was murdered in the home of Count Khazar, in a family that places a high value on honor, means that this guy was an absolute lowlife. So if he keeps quiet and calm, he might be able to avoid death. Since he woke up a rich kid, he should just take care of himself and enjoy wealth and honor. The boy still can't believe it. Ragnarok, the end of all living things. The reason why Demon King Carnage started the war was to sacrifice humanity to complete Ragnarok. By the time they realized it, it was too late. Both the rule of light and the magical empire had met their end. So if he wants to survive, he needs to stop the apocalypse. The Demon King is one thing, the big problem is that he has the loyalty of the magical empire's perverts. To stop it, he needs to become someone more powerful than the Demon King Carnage. There's only one way to do it. Chris must become Demon Emperor and take his place at the top of the magical empire. He's been given 5 years before the Age of Destruction begins. He can try, and if he succeeds, the entire magical empire will be his. His father yelled to Christian that he had asked him to stay in his room, hadn't he? How dare a guy show his face after what he's recently done? If he ever did his own thing again, his father would personally chop his head off. The boy stared and thought about how the Count had a hell of an intimidating aura. Chris said he came to apologize for all his actions. If he wants to carry out his plan, he has to get rid of his past image. He said he was truly sorry for what he had done and it would not happen again. His father doubted his words. What other trouble had this body gotten into before Regression? He's heard so many stories he can't pick one. Chris replied that the blame for the loss of trust was also on him. However, 3 days ago he didn't mention that he had lost some of his memories. To bring back these memories, he reflected on his past actions and realized how wrong he had lived his life. His father replied that he had heard his excuses countless times. Justification by words alone meant nothing, so it would show what to do next. Christian asked his father to send him to the punishment cave. He would stay there for a month and show them a different self. The punishment cave is a prison used for high-status perverts. It is a place where not only is there no light, but all 5 senses are blocked. Even a few days is enough to mess up the mind. Right now, however, it's perfect for him. He needs somewhere to hide from other people's gazes. The Count asks, is he going to lock himself in a cave for a month? He doubts the guy is capable of lasting even half a day. The boy replied that he understands perfectly well how difficult a place this is. However, he thinks it is the minimum necessary for his father to believe him. His father replied that the boy knew, didn't he? How many times had they already talked about it? And each time he left him disappointed. He agreed to give his son one last chance. However, if nothing changes in a month, he will be expelled from the clan. That meant the guy would be sentenced to death. There's a long list of people who will target his life once he loses the clan's protection. But if Chris can prove he's changed, please let his father grant his request. Dad said he sounded so arrogant, as if he was sure he'd come out in one piece. He replied that it was fine if his son could prove to him that he had changed, but would grant any request he made. But he doesn't believe that will ever happen. The butler of the Cassar house, Cox, announced to the young gentleman that the punishment cave had been prepared. As they were heading towards the cave, all the people around called him a lowlife and discussed that he volunteered to go to the punishment cave. They didn't realize what else he could do. The recent incident where he had insulted a young lady from the Poison Mage clan was out of the ordinary. For this incident, the Count had to apologize personally. How embarrassing to have to apologize to a rival clan. They wondered, when would that bum grow up? Christian heard them discussing that he'd be there for 2 days at most. Cox informed the young gentleman that they had arrived. Looking around, he thought using Death Knights as guards as befits a magical empire. Not if it would only prevent someone from entering the cave. Christian was suddenly called out by someone. He was familiar with his face. Christian's own younger brother and diligent student turned Van Baron Cassar. He drew his sword towards his brother's neck. Chris asked what business did he have with him? It didn't look like he'd come to say goodbye to him. Turn shouted that he was sure his brother knew what a disgrace the family was. He doesn't know what the man is up to, but if he ever tarnishes the family's honor again, he'll kill him personally. Then he said, did Chris get it? The guy thought he must have killed Christian. He had personally met Turn during the Age of Destruction. He was a fiend known for his cursed magic. Against him, who has seen the worst that the Age of Destruction has to offer, he's just a snot. Chris told him to leave, then turned and started walking toward the cave. His brother was clearly unhappy that he hadn't been allowed to speak. Once inside the cave, the guy realized that he couldn't see or hear anything. There were only faint sensations in his fingertips. It's probably done on purpose so that the prisoners can feel the items that are brought to them, otherwise they will starve to death. A normal person would quickly feel exhausted in such a place. It didn't matter to him, though. In his time as a treasure hunter, he'd faced worse. And blocking out the 5 senses is what he wanted because it would allow him to look deeper into himself. Without that, he can't remake this broken body. Of course, that takes a lot of time and luck. But with the medical skills he mastered as a divine doctor, the art of bone compression he learned in the circus. And finally, magic stones with different properties with which anything is possible. He thought he couldn't get them since they were expensive. Must be the subtleties of an elite clan. They listened to his requests, even though the guy was good for nothing. And in a previous life, he and Evan had to fight to get them. It starts with a white magic stone to cleanse the toxins. It's a boring but important step. It requires him to painstakingly work on cleansing his entire body of toxins with white mana. Even the smallest mistake will cause severe pain throughout his body, but for him, it's the easiest thing to do. The man asked how Christian was doing. Cox replied that the boy had obediently entered the punishment cave. He's afraid it will break him so badly that he won't even be able to call for help. His father thought, was sending him there a mistake? He had such a promising future as a child. Why did he break so suddenly? Had the gift made him too arrogant? Whatever the reason, his father would rather he completely collapse or die than live such a miserable life. Shaking his head from side to side, the man realized he shouldn't have any expectations. He'd already fooled them for too long. Khazar asked, Cox didn't notice anything strange when his son walked in? Let him not hide anything and talk about every detail. He replied that the young gentleman had brought magic stones with him. including a dream stone that caused hallucinations. Since they don't know the side effects, they should open the cave immediately. The man sternly replied that no. Coming a month later to that very cave, the count thought his son must have already collapsed. But as soon as the cave opened, his son appeared, who was delighted to see his father before him. Chris asked, wondering if his father was surprised. He had promised to come back a different man after all. Seeing his eyes, Chris realized that his father hadn't looked at him like that since he was a little boy. The father asked, so did the son successfully pass this test? The boy asked, is that a compliment? Khazar replied that he shouldn't get excited over such a small thing, he still didn't trust him. Chris replied that it meant he had to work harder. He had created an optimal body to master swordsmanship techniques. Thanks to the white mana stone, every cell in his body was buzzing with life. In addition, the Dreamstone changed the game. The butler tried to stop him from taking the narcotic mana stone with him. Cox asked, was he really going to take him to the punishment cave with him? But looking back, Chris is glad he stayed stubborn. Thanks to his hallucinations, he shortened the metamorphosis time considerably. In addition, the guy created 2 nuclei. And what they're saying is that he shouldn't brag since he's the only strongest in theory. Single-digit spell, light? Doesn't matter because he's still a goddamn genius. Needless to say, he used the core of darkness to hide the core of light. The monsters would make a big fuss if they found out. It would have ended perfectly, but someone hoped he was high on it and broke down. He decided to use him as a sacrifice for his forward momentum. Since Chris kept his promise, let his father allow him to make a request. The father replied that the son could speak. The guy asked permission to use the training ground of the Knights of the Black Swamp for him. His father replied that a lowlife like him didn't belong there. They are one of the 3 knightly orders that support the Dark Magic clan. He must know that only the most elite knights can display their skills there. Chris replied that he was only asking for a training ground. He thought that watching the bravery of the Black Swamp Knights would be a good influence on him. It's not like the guy's gonna join their order. Father said okay, but let him heed his words. Let him not behave shamefully in front of the knights. Chris replied that he understood, then said there was one more thing he wanted to ask. Seeing Chris, they asked, isn't that a silly young gentleman? They insulted the count's son. It's probably because they're in a magical empire where power is more important than status. Chris's second request was for the library. His father replied that if he got a letter of recommendation from Deputy Commander Melon, he would give him the keys. It's where all the dark magic grimoires of Kassar County are kept. To learn dark magic, he must gain access. Chris asked why his father added the conditions. He's still a member of the clan, right? He must have forgotten how he tried to sell advanced grimoires on the black market. The guy didn't realize what kind of life his body had. Either way, his first priority should be to get the deputy commanders recognized. Turn told his brother that this was not at all a place where a worm like him could just walk in. Chris was initially disappointed, thinking, there he goes again. Then he realized this could be a good opportunity. Turn shouted that this was his last warning, let him go. He probably doesn't want to throw away the life he was so fortunate to save, does he? Christian asked his brother if Turn was sure of what he was saying. His father is the one who allowed him to enter the training ground. Turn didn't want to believe his words. The girl said she respected the count's decision, but he didn't inspire confidence. Turning around, Chris saw Deputy Commander Melon. It was at least a 4-star dark energy. They seemed to want to intimidate him from the start, but he was used to such threats. He saluted the deputy commander. She was surprised, for he could withstand her dark energy. He said that since the deputy was also involved, it couldn't be helped. He then added that he would prove his right to use the landfill as well. How about winning a fight with one of the people here? Someone shouted that his jokes had gone too far. Christian replied that it wasn't a joke. Instead, he would ask them to refrain from dark energy. His abilities are far from what they could be. He prefers to duel unarmed. She thought even if it's a duel, they can't let the air get hurt. Melon asked the young master if he had a chance. Chris replied that they would see about that, and then he began to think about who to choose as an opponent. He briefly thought of the name Turn. He asked how dare the guy? Melon said he'd better find a better opponent. Chris knows that young Master Turn's level is 2-star, right? 2 stars, a level the average 13-year-old can't reach. If there's no talent, it doesn't matter if you're 13 or 23, you can't even pull a power level. But Chris is an unusual bastard, too. He said no, if he wanted to show his strength, he had to fight someone stronger than himself. His best bet would be to fight Turn. Turning to Turn, the boy asked what he would say. He's not afraid of his brother, is he? Turn replied that he accepted the challenge. Chris asked the deputy how will they determine the winner. Would they fight until the enemy surrendered? She thought what an impertinent man, not even knowing his place. Melon replied that it was too boring, acting until one side can't fight. Chris asked, brother heard the rules, what is he going to do? They say he's in for a serious beating. Calling him an insolent idiot, Turn shouted that he would make sure he never opened his mouth again. Before Turn could speak, his brother had already thrown the first punch. Then he asked what was the matter, for the duel had already begun. Before striking back, Turn yelled for his brother to shut up. Honestly, that's practically cheating. As a fiend who hasn't reached 1 star yet, he doesn't stand a chance against someone with dark energy. In his past life, he fought on countless battlefields. If you only count his mastery of light powers, he's already a 3-star. Chris asked, is the brother crying already? If he wants to, Big Brother will blow on his wound. Turn asked what stunt he'd pulled. Chris said it was nothing like that. Maybe he's just too weak. Make him answer louder, you can't hear anything. As he began his attack, Turn shouted that he was going to kill him. Chris noticed that he was pretty fast. That was much better. At some point Turn noticed that something was happening to his dark energy. Has young Master Turn let his guard down? Combat, it's instinct. Maybe he took out his dark energy because he was afraid that Bastard would get hurt? Melon replied that's right, otherwise none of this makes sense. Chris asked, what would she say? Is that enough to prove his qualifications? Melon replied that yes. It worked, now he would absorb everything, both swordsmanship and magic. Chris achieved 1 star in dark magic. Since he had not fully mastered it yet, and there was a lot left over from Christian, it took longer. As for possessing the power of light at the same time, he would need to raise his level to do so. Christian called in his personal maid, Marie. To think they're using a high-level evil spirit Banshee as a maid. Although, truth be told, because of Christian's constant problems, they couldn't hire the man. He'll be sure to replace it later. Chris asked to get him some juice, he would drink it and leave for practice. Marie asked if she should make the juice with human blood. Chris replied that strawberries would be better. Cox, seeing the young gentleman, was surprised. He asked, is the boy going to practice so early? The man is worried that he's putting too much strain on himself. Of course he was pleased and proud that the master was so diligent. He believed in him even when everyone else was pointing fingers. Chris replied that he never asked to believe in him. Who is he to decide whether to believe in him or not? Apologizing, Cox said he shouldn't have said that. Wishing the gentleman a good workout, he left. The young gentleman was wary, for there was something suspicious about him. Looking at the others, Christian realized that their eyes were starting to look more docile than before. Now that their vigilance was down, should he try to win them over gradually? Melon was reported that young Mr. Christian had reappeared on the training ground today. She couldn't understand what he was up to. And what was this duel? Young Master Turn's movements were impressive, but for him to dispel the dark energy at the right moment. Could he really have seen the progress of the battle? If so, he might even have the talent to surpass Lord Ashid de Baron, the direct heir of the main family. No, he's still just a bastard. He's already lost his dark energy due to his dissolute lifestyle. Now he won't be able to close that gap. Outside, the deputy commander said it was very noisy, then asked what was going on. Someone said that it seems the young master had a little conflict with his squire. The deputy asked, what happened? That's when they remembered that Cannon had 1 star. She couldn't believe it. Could it be that this bastard had also reached 1 star? Chris said what? He wanted to see how the rumored great knights of the Black Swamp were showing themselves, but didn't seem to live up to their reputation. Then he asked, doesn't anyone else want to come forward? They're not a cowardly order of knights, are they? Goran came up to him and told him he was ready. Chris realized they were walking into his trap. He didn't expect them to obediently teach the secret techniques of knights to some arrogant bastard. So if that's the case, he has no choice but to steal it that way. That grip angle and that smooth footwork. So this was the mud fencing he'd only heard rumors about. Maybe if he does something like this, it will work? Everyone immediately started saying that it couldn't be. Was he really that strong? Isn't his core of darkness destroyed? How did it reach 1 star? So she wasn't wrong then? Chris said annoyingly, it seems he had too much faith in the knights. If their skills are so pathetic, he would say that their deputy has some responsibility. Melon replied that she understood. The young lord was very happy about this unexpected victory, but had he not gotten too carried away? Chris asked, how about the deputy commander showing him the skills of the Knights of the Black Swamp? Calling him a bastard, the deputy commander replied that she could handle someone like him in a second. Chris asked, is she going to fight someone like him at full strength? They use dark energy up to 1 star and forbid dark magic. The deputy commander asked, 1 star? Then said she'd break both his legs. He said okay, he's putting his legs on the line. What about hers? She said it would be fine, he wasn't leaving there today anyway. They began their confrontation. He held on for a long time considering he was facing the deputy commander. Isn't it because the deputy commander's main weapon is a sword? She realized that wasn't the point. For some reason her attacks weren't reaching him. He shouldn't be her equal. When he fought Thorn and before that a familiar situation. Chris yelled that things didn't seem to be going her way. She yelled for him to shut up. Watching her movements, the guy realized that now was the time. Taking advantage of the moment, Christian headbutted her in the face. Melon is a warrior mage. As she uses dark magic, a gap in her defenses flashes. And she wouldn't be able to close that gap with purely physical strength, he thought. If Melon was an eruption centered on the sword, it might not work. Laughing, Melon said she never thought she'd be caught headbutting. Looks like she underestimated him too much, she'll focus from now on. She asked if the fight was already over. Chris replied that he had scratched her with his fingernail while headbutting her. If he smeared his nails with poison, she realizes what would happen to her. Doesn't she? Melon replied that she accepts this defeat. Let him say what he wants? But in return, could she get the chance to fight him again? He asked for a rematch. Then she would have to fulfill another of his requests. She answered anything. Chris replied that in that case she would kneel before him. She replied that he knew that was an impossible condition, didn't he? Her loyalty belongs to the main family of the dark magic clan, House Baron. He asked if it wouldn't be resolved if he became a young lord. She said, young lord? That's a load of crap. 5 young lords whose rights to the succession have been recognized, all of whom are direct descendants of the main family. But it's not like there's a rule that a member of a branch of the family can't become a young lord. Anyway, she accepts her request for a duel. He suggested a month from now, but next time they would not limit their strength. Melon replied that then the young lord would have no chance of overpowering him. The young gentleman replied that there were few things in this world that were impossible. Bowing, he said they would see each other in a month. On that day he would make her realize to whom she must be faithful. Holding the paper out to his father, Chris said it was a letter of recommendation from Deputy Commander Melon. Perverts lack fundamentals. They need to focus more on training. She revealed that the young master was a genius. Even with his low star rank, he easily defeated those with a solid foundation. Even hers. For Melon, a fight was one of those rare ones she could savor. His father said that, as promised, he was giving him the key to the library. Chris got the key to the library and even changed Melon's mind. She is an eruptionist from the main family of the Dark Mal clan. During the Age of Destruction, she was active as a 6-star eruption. Of course, he hadn't completely won her over yet, but 1 month would be enough. Speaking of Count Cassar, that look on his face, that look of paternal pride, I guess? He guesses the perverts have family attachments, too. Maybe he'll even turn out to be a better father than the one he had in his last life. Christian will not disappoint Count Cassar, though no, not the Count, but his father. Blood magic, the study of summoning, the study of curses. All of which are forbidden in the Rule of Light. As soon as Chris pulled out one of the books, someone's eyes showed behind it. Seeing Marie, the boy asked what she was doing there. She told me that she was once the librarian of the place. Perhaps the young master wants to use her as his personal maid? He asked her to shut up. Marie told the young master that the grimoire he had chosen contained a 4-star dark magic called the Binding Seal. In his current state, he can't read it. Chris said it's okay, he's a genius. She shouted that her dear young master was not only handsome but a genius. Christian asked her to be quiet. Marie asked if there was a reason why he had chosen that particular book. The boy replied that of course he had to catch a rat. First potential rat turn. He has the most contempt for him in the house for Chris being a talentless rat. The second potential rat cocks. Though he's a descendant of the clan, he has free access to the punishment cave. And yet he's running around sucking up to him. It could also be a third party that he doesn't know about yet. Whatever the case, they want to see him in decline, for in the punishment cave they provided him with the Dreamstone. Maybe he should act like the bastard they want him to be. Someone who seems pleased with his behavior is probably the culprit. Christian shouted that it was too complicated. Let them have their own fun, he leaves. Throwing all the plates on the floor, Christian shouted that the servant should have served him normal food. He shouted for the servant not to stand post and hand him his food. The father said he made a mistake when he thought his son had finally grown up. Christian was a little uncomfortable, but it's for the good of the family, so please let her understand him. He was diligently spreading rumors about being a bastard again. Chris bullied the maids when they were cleaning, throwing money around, abusing his personal maid. He yelled why she wouldn't let him drink the wine. Marie replied that the master was drinking it right now. Christian resented her for making the wine non-alcoholic. She replied that he was underage and could not drink it. Did he decide to act like a horrible person again? She said it's all right. Even so, that young maiden will be by his side forever. As he said he was looking for a rat. Marie replied that it couldn't be. Had he already mastered the binding seal? Christian said he was a genius. Modified it so it could be used even at low star level. He wasn't just messing around. The guy worked hard, mastering various spells. As soon as Chris saw his brother, he realized he had to pretend to be drunk. Then he asked what's his brother doing there. Turn started yelling was that all his brother could do? He thought the guy had changed for the better. Chris realized his brother was genuinely angry. Then he could rule him out as a suspect. Turning to Turn, the brother told him that he thought there was a rat in the house. The boy didn't know what he was talking about. Chris went on to say that someone wants to see him collapse. He intends to dance to his tune for a while longer. Turn asked, is his brother trying to say that it was all a sham? Chris replied that yes, even this wine is fake. Turn immediately asked who the rat was. The brother replied that it was hard to tell yet, but he should take the bait any time now. As soon as he dropped the glass, the man immediately appeared and asked if it was okay. Chris replied that it wasn't the wine he had asked for. Let him bring another one. The man replied that Mr. Cox was busy right now. Christian replied that he should pay him a visit then. Turn didn't understand where he got his acting skills from. Seeing Chris, Cox asked what brought the young gentleman to him. Pouring the contents of the bottle over the man's head, Chris said it wasn't the wine he asked for. Does the man think he's a no-good? Cox replied that no, he would order a suitable one to be brought to him immediately. Chris replied that no, he'd rather have him bring it himself. The man replied that he was busy. The gentleman asked, is he really going to work like that? He needs to change anyway, so let him go. Cox immediately withdrew, but before doing so told the young gentleman that he would be back soon. The guy has to give credit to his patience to endure such humiliation, but this hostility. He figured if the butler was a rat, he'd be doing some funny things with the finances. But that's not enough either. He needs a real weapon. Cox brought the wine the young gentleman had asked for. After thanking him, the young master asked if the man was angry. Chris doesn't know if he can tell, but Cox is his favorite. The man replied that he was very grateful. After which he said that he had a little message for the young gentleman. His friends want to meet the young gentleman secretly, as usual. Though Cox would rather he didn't hang out with them, but he was the judge of his friends. Christian replied that he thought he'd go see them after all. Cox replied that as the young master wished. Things are going much better than the young gentleman himself expected. A friend said he's heard rumors about how the guy has changed recently. But it's not true, Christian is the best of them. Putting a young girl like that in charge of pouring drinks, what a bunch of garbage. Let her drink then. As soon as Chris brought the glass to his lips, he immediately smelled a foreign odor. His friends were trying hard to get him to drink. Chris threw a glass of wine at his friend's face with all his might. He immediately yelled, "What's the guy doing?" Christian replied that he was spoiling the sacred alcohol. From the way he reacted, it looked like he knew there was something in it. At that moment, Chris touched his finger to the girl's forehead and she, at the same moment, fell asleep. His friends wondered, did he know how to use dark magic? Chris replied that now was not the time to wonder about that. They didn't realize what their friend was doing? Chris replied that if he still didn't realize what he had done wrong after such a blow, he might as well just die here and now. Sitting bound, they begged the young master to spare them. They were ordered to feed him a forbidden substance and frame him after he had killed the girl. They said the guy threatened them with the substances they were secretly dealing, so they had no choice. Christian asked, and who is the guy who hired them? Hearing silence in response, Chris asked, does he really want to be cut off? He immediately started yelling that it was Cox. Please spare his life. The kid will do anything. Christian asked, is it true, will they do anything? The boys replied that they swear. He replied that it was all right to take them at their word. Let them listen carefully to everything he tells them and do as he says. Running into the gentleman's office, Cox shouted that they were in trouble. The man asked what was the problem. Cox said that the young gentleman had committed a murder. It seems that he got drunk at night, killed someone who was present when he drank, and threw the body into the river. They won't be able to forget this crime so easily. What will the master order him to do? The master ordered Christian to be brought to the trial of the perverts. Then he added that he would be waiting in the courtroom. Standing in the courtroom, the young gentleman spoke of his innocence. Father asked, how dare he lie? There are witnesses. Chris asked, how can there be if it never happened? Christian replied that he thought it was a misunderstanding. Could the dead servant be the child? She said that the young gentleman took her home when she woke up from unconsciousness. He even gave her money for rent. Rather, those two are the villains. They put a substance in the young master's drink. Christian thought, okay, this is the moment of climax. They immediately started saying it was true. They'd given false information. Because they had orders from Cox, the butler, to frame the young master. Cox started yelling, what the hell are they talking about? It's all slander, the young gentleman and his friends are trying to frame him. He told the young gentleman that this was too much, this joke was out of line. Chris knew he'd react that way. Turning to Mr. Count, the lad asked if he could ask one thing. Let him allow him to act as a proxy for his authority to question Butler Cox directly. The Count replied that he would allow it. Let Cox go to the prosecution stand. However, as soon as he behaves inappropriately, the authorization will be revoked. Chris replied that it would be quick. As a representative of the great ruler of the magical empire, His Majesty the Demon Emperor, as a member of the Dark Magician clan governing the eastern region of the Southern Magic Kingdom, and as the representative of Count Khazar, he would interrogate the accused. Turning to defendant Cox, Chris asked if he swore that he would only answer truthfully to his words. Cox replied that he did. As representative of the Demon Emperor, he asks again. Does the defendant Cox swear to answer only the truth? He answers again that he does. A binding seal appeared. Everyone was surprised. How could a mere child use 4-star dark magic? It has been modified so that it can be used even with a lower star rank. However, it has additional conditions. Specifically, he needs the target to swear twice. Cox clearly wasn't expecting that. Chris asked, hadn't he just sworn to him that he would only answer the truth? Now let him tell him why he hired those two men to slander his name? Cox immediately admitted that he had received the order. The man knew his business and threatened him. He told him to destroy the young master. Chris asked, by cases do they mean the embezzlements he has been committing over time? The gentleman has already seen the records. Now let him tell me who gave him the order. Let him speak now. Cox admitted that it was Sir Ashid. It was the second son of the Dark Mage clan, Sir Ashid de Baron. The man started yelling that he was going to kill him. He needed to get away as fast as possible. Snatching a sword from one of the servants, Christian took his head off Cox's shoulders in an instant. Whereupon he said that by exercising the power derived from the Count, he had punished the sinner. His father asked why he had made that particular decision. Chris replied that if they had let him live, the main family would have fabricated evidence and covered up the incident. They can't be lenient with them. Moreover, he intends to make sure that everyone there knows. Ashid de Baron tried to kill him. Following with his father, Chris asked where they were. The Count replied that it was a secret training area. There are too many extra eyes in the courtroom. What he just said, does he believe that Ashid will create more problems as a result of the conflict over the succession? The family's power and authority depends directly on the successor it supports. His decision was the right one, but his father feels he acted hastily. Father replied that, however, as things stood, they would have to support the first young lady. First young lord, not an option. He's a mad, bloodthirsty madman. Christian replied to his father that there was another option. He would be the successor. The father said it was nonsense, to which the son replied that someone from a branch of the family could be recognized as the successor if he had the necessary abilities. The Count added that this rule is only lip service. In reality, it was not enforced. Chris asked his father why he thought Ashid was trying to take him out. He might have been more talented than Ashid when he was a kid, but now he was far behind him. Chris replied that he'd catch up quickly, but he needed his father's help for the rest. Let his father use his authority and recommend him to take part in the sacred dark rite in 2 months. The Count replied, in order to participate in the ritual, he must reach the level of 2 stars. He realizes that he has only recently reached 1 star. Chris said that he will definitely reach the 2-star level within the next 2 months. So let his father help him. The servants were discussing how the young master had completely changed. She even heard that the Earl was personally training him. It was the kind of training that even the older knights found difficult. They wondered how long the young master would last. Chris said to bind him with swamp fencing and chop him with a black scythe. He got it right, didn't he? His father realized that he had just started teaching him how to wield the black scythe sword today. But he learned everything so quickly? But does Chris really have to do it that way? Keep them separate. Christian thinks there's a better method. Dad said it was swamp fencing. The limbs of a human mushroom are hard enough to fend off a swamp sword. Chris replied that he used swamp swordsmanship and enveloped him with the black scythe sword energy. Father replied that it was strong, but using 2 techniques at the same time would make it difficult to use curses. Christian replied that not at all, it's very simple, although a little uncomfortable. Lying on the ground, the guy didn't understand why running was so hard, and he couldn't slack off because endurance was the key to increasing his strength. Walking up to him, Melon wondered if he was already exhausted. The duel was just around the corner. She looked forward to the promised day. The guy replied that he was doing his best to live up to her expectations. Melon replied that she was aware of his incredible height, but he still had 1 star. He wouldn't make her get on her knees. Chris replied that he was sure it could happen. Besides, he would learn something from the fight. She can see he's still full of energy. She hopes he goes beyond his limits and doesn't disappoint her. He understood that Melon currently has a 4-star rating. There are 3 separate levels within a stage: low, medium, and high. As the highest 1 star, it's well below her level. But he's from a rich family, he's a warrior with a purse. When he entered the room, he asked if Marie had finished packing his bag for the walk. The girl replied that of course she had. Their first walk together. She tried to dress to impress. Chris yelled that he didn't say she was coming with him. Did he? Marie said she could see he was worried she might get sunstroke. The girl replied not to worry, for she was happy to serve him. Chris didn't understand how a banshee could get heatstroke. He asked his father if he could exchange a servant for a man. The man replied that he could not, for he and Marie had made a contract to serve the master. A high-ranking banshee cannot govern without a contract. Chris asked how can the contract be cancelled. Dad replied that he thought it would require sharing a deep kiss with Marie. Chris resented that old Christian was good for nothing. He told Marie that she couldn't come anyway. He's going to a place where there are lots of people. Upset, Marie said she was looking forward to the tour. He replied that it was just that her spiritual energy could hurt people. She'd been stuck in that mansion for decades. Taking pity on her, he said okay, she could go with him. He ordered Marie to follow him. When she asked where they were going, Chris said where he could make a profit. Marie told the young gentleman that he already had a lot of money. He replied that it wasn't that much and in general let him put it back. She tried to guess, but it was in vain. Chris said it was something he'd used before. Seeing his brother, Tern told him that he was late. Chris asked what he was even doing there. Tern replied that he was there to keep an eye on him in case he started acting like a bastard again. His brother told him not to worry about it. Christian is just going gambling, that's all. Thorn certainly didn't expect to hear that. They are fiends, it goes without saying that they are close to alcohol and gambling. Even the Demon Emperor recommends them and they're legal for a reason. Tern replied that then he would follow along with his brother there. Chris asked, maybe he was worried about his big brother? Why would he even be worried about him? Tern is worried about him embarrassing the family. Chris asked, for a nerd like him, that's probably too cool? Tern is sure to flatten his cheeky nose. Except that tonight's victim will be Tern. Tern never even knew a building could look like that. Melon replied that her heart was already fluttering. Holding out the mask to his brother, Chris told him to be a redneck and put it on. He ordered Marie to hide from now on so that people wouldn't see her, and let her lend him her ear for another minute. She said she would do as the Lord asked. Let Tern not worry, they should hurry up and go inside. Turning around, one of the men said that it looked like they were born suckers. To think they had walked into the lion's den by themselves. Chris asked if his brother wanted to make a bet on who would make the most money in an hour. If he wins, Chris will call him Big Brother. But if he loses, he should call Chris Your Highness Senior Noble Emperor Brother. Here's some money for him. But if he's afraid, he doesn't need anything. Grabbing the money from his brother's hands, the boy asked who said anything about fear. He would go first. The girl told me that it was a victory for the young gentleman. The man added that he plays well. If he plays more, he will surely earn more. When you are just starting out, they allow you to win a reasonable amount. By inciting a self-confident sucker, they get to the point where their victim makes a big bet. He knows exactly how these scammers work. Turn yelled that he was sure it was a good play. And here's a sucker who's already fallen into their trap. Chris asked, why doesn't his brother just go home and go to bed? Turn asked, isn't his brother losing money? Chris lost 500 rupees and Turn lost about 1,000 rupees. The guy thought that was great. Everybody's got his brother on the hook. He's sure some crook will try to scam him soon. Once again snatching the money from his brother, Turn shouted that he would continue and ran off. Smiling, Chris thought, let his brother remember he was the one who tried to stop him. He wants his brother to lose a lot of money and be the perfect bait. Marie told the young gentleman that she had found the people he was talking about. The girl told the gentleman that this was the place. Chris asked to open the door for him. The guards immediately swooped in asking who he was. Chris replied that everyone must know about him. When they saw him, they asked what business the young gentleman had come for. Christian asked them to call his master. Seeing the young master, Grantel, the master of the merchant guild, asked, has the young master come for a visit? He may be known for his talent as a salesman, but he's actually a casino owner. Chris replied that he was hoping to talk privately. Calling him a con man, Chris told him that his little brother, whom he cares so much about yet dares to ask what's wrong? The man shouted that there was no way that horse was wearing a tiger mask. Chris replied that he was right, he was the heir to Count Cassar. Grantel began to assure the young gentleman that he was only the manager of the casino. What the others had done had nothing to do with him. After the blow, he immediately began to apologize. If he had known that the man was the Count's son, he would never have done it. Then he said he'd be willing to pay compensation. How much did the young gentleman want? Christian replied that 1,000,000 rupees. Grantel replied that they didn't have that much money. Chris said that then he would settle for 200,000. After the man asked if that amount would be enough, Christian said there was something else he had to give him. Seeing the sword, Marie said to think he was going to use the 200,000 rupees he was extorting to buy battle gear. However, this is not the same sword they gave him, Grenade. Wasn't this the sacred sword that a past hero had gotten by giving up his soul? She heard it was wanted by many because it was what the hero used after his fall. But now he's rusty. Chris replied that it was okay, it was all part of the plan. Holding out the necklace to her, he said it was something she had looked at before, let it be a gift. It seemed to him that she could never get rid of her regrets if she didn't get it, so he was giving it to her so she could find peace soon and move on. Marie replied that before her death, and even after, this is the first time she has ever received a gift. In gratitude, she will put her whole soul into it, and from now on will make blood juice that will be even more delicious. Chris replied that he wouldn't drink anything like that. Marie added that all along it had been in the strawberry juice. The young gentleman feels like he has forgotten something, but is sure he will remember it later. Turn, who has only 1 rupee left. Woken by his brother's screams, Turn asked why he had abandoned him. Because of him, he had almost been sold into debt slavery. He was lucky someone recognized him. Looks like Grantel helped him. Although, isn't addressing him the wrong way? He lost the bet, so he has to fulfill the condition. Let him call him by his proper name, Your Highness Senior Noble Emperor Brother. Let him remember to respect him and strive to be on top of things himself as well. Leaving his brother's room, Turn shouted that someday he would have his revenge. Let his brother prepare. This adorable kid is gonna grow up and kill Christian. Maybe it's all because of him. Ashit is the son of Langham, the current head of the Dark Mage clan. The boy has no special feelings for him since he is not the real Christian. But if the guy wants to become a young lord, he can't avoid confronting him. Let him just wait, the lad will return the favor for the brotherly grudge. But to do that, he needs to get Melon on his side. Grenade, in its time, countless fiends have attempted to wield the sacred sword. The reason why this sacred sword is treated as an antique is because no one has ever been able to master it. Chris decided to see how the sword would react to him. Perhaps this was to be expected, for it was an artifact created to harness the holy power of light. Still a weapon, though. He would be able to use it if he could analyze the mechanism that made him reject dark energy. After a few strokes, Christian asked the sword, does it really hurt? Then just let him submit because he plans to beat him continuously all night. As soon as the father saw his son, he immediately asked if Christian had finished his training. The guy said yes, then asked who was standing there. He thought he had seen her somewhere before. Bowing, the guy said that he was greeting a knight, the commander of the Black Shadow Knights. She turned around and said she hadn't seen her nephew in a long time. It was Marion, the commander of the Black Shadow Knights. Daughter of the head of the senior clan, master of the Dark Mage clan, and older sister of his father and Viscount Langham. She protects the clan head and is in charge of secret missions and surveillance within the clan. An elite among the elites of the Dark Mage clan. Sister Marion had come to see them on some business connected with Cox. She said the child had done something rather daring. Perhaps the senior clan leader is going to protect Ashit? That would be a bit of a problem. The head seems to have a lot of free time to deal with such trivial matters. Marion replied how silly, he wasn't interested in childish squabbles, rather he seemed to be interested in him. Well, this could be an opportunity to win his favor. However, she wonders if it's bravery or idiocy. He hasn't even reached 2 stars yet and he's already challenging Melon? Would the boy like to cancel the duel? Chris thanked his aunt for worrying about him, but he had plans of his own. When she saw the sword, she said it couldn't be, it was Grenade. The child had truly gone mad. She knew he was a troublemaker, but not to this extent. Didn't Ridden talk about Christian changing for the better? Is he the one who wants to use the holy sword in a duel? Chris asked, isn't he not allowed to use the holy sword? Shouldn't he win no matter what method or trick he had to use? Marion began to tell me that even the clan head could not tame the sword. The holy power of the sword would burn him to ashes. As soon as the sword was in his hands, she immediately started talking about the replica. Christian asked if Auntie would like to try it out, but as soon as she took it in her hands, she immediately threw it aside. She didn't understand how he was doing it. Chris replied that it was a trade secret, he couldn't tell her. But of one thing she could be sure. The only reason she can wield the sword, which even the clan head couldn't succumb to, is because he's a genius. Appearing out of nowhere, Melon said that the young master was so funny taming the sacred mecha, but what did it matter? Looking at him smirking, she said it was his last day in this world anyway. As expected, without any restrictions, her strength and speed are not comparable to before. He can't bridge that gap. Marion said that the power of the holy sword is against dark energy. Hadn't he surpassed him at this level when he was younger? It wasn't over yet. Miriam asked if her brother had seen this child move to use the holy sword. The Count said it was an incredible power, but his dark energy seemed to fluctuate a bit. Miriam replied that it wasn't. He controls his dark energy to avoid the rejection reaction of the holy sword. Christian asked Melon if she liked the battle. She replied that she had been thinking about it for a long time, but perhaps he was anticipating her movements? Chris replied that he was quite observant. Every sword move has a preceding stance. Before you can take a downward swing, you need to raise your arms, and to do this, you need to move your shoulder and upper body muscles. It's what brings the novice and the expert together. Melon asked, how about this? She asked, hoping he hadn't forgotten that the Knights of the Black Swamp warrior mages. Chris realized that this could be a problem. Melon wondered if it was a cleansing artifact. Chris shouted to his father that he had survived because of it. The man asked, shouldn't it be lying in a secret vault? Either way, having good gear is a skill in real combat. Looking straight into Melon's eyes, he said that in such a case, even dodging was useless. He bought this artifact with the money he took from Grantel. It's really very effective. Christian shouted that he knew she was alive, so let her show herself. The Count thought, why did he put that corrosive marble in the air? Let his sister look at it. What was he telling her? Melon shouted to the young master that this was too much fun. What would be the next attack? Marion says it looks like Melon has gone crazy. They have to stop her. Christian said that it looked like he had won. Was Melon satisfied with that? Laughing, Melon said, is that really what he's asking about? She couldn't calm down anymore. Then please have him give him an answer to his previous request as soon as possible. Even though it was his victory, he would respect her choice if Melon refused. Loyalty isn't something that can be gained by force. Melon asked if she took his side. Would he continue to fight her in the future? Shaking the girl's hand, Christian replied that as much as he liked. Possessing such dark energy, it's impossible for a clan leader to, right? He replied that he could master it for a moment. But as she knew, the waves of dark energy were constantly changing. So you have to keep changing the waves to ones that the sword can't detect. But who can do that in combat? Maybe a demon of Gehenna or a demonic dragon could do it. There might be a crazy bastard who can control dark energy as easily as breathing. Chris asked Lady Marion how he had done. Enough to earn her praise? Maybe Dad's long-held wish can be fulfilled. Watching what was going on in the kitchen, Chris couldn't believe he was making strawberry shortcakes. Marie replied that despite his appearance, his skills are top-notch. When he saw the young gentleman, he asked what brought him to the kitchen. Christian replied that he wanted to make cookies. Marie wondered if he really wanted to bake cookies. He replied that he wanted to give them to someone. The assistant immediately began to ask questions. Is it for another woman? He replied that it was not what Marie thought it was. The cook said he could bake cookies. Chris replied that it's okay, baking sincere snacks with your own hands is what's important. Having called out to Lady Marian, Chris walked swiftly towards her. When she saw her nephew, she asked, "What is it?" The guy said he heard she was leaving and came to say goodbye. She said that she was grateful to him for that. He was probably tired after the duel yesterday. Christian replied that not at all, but he just had something for her. Marian replied that he should not have prepared such a present. He replied that he was glad to see her, so he couldn't help preparing a present. The Count realized, so that's why he questioned him yesterday? He sure knows how to win someone over. He asked Marian to try them since he had baked them himself. She was obviously surprised. When Marian tasted it, she said it was delicious. Chris was glad that she liked it. She must give him something in return for this beautiful gift. Does he want something? Christian started to say that if it was okay with her, let her be his real aunt from now on. She replied that since they were already blood relatives, she was sure there was a deeper meaning behind his words. Marian heard from Ridden that he is involved in a sacred dark rite. Is it true? So he wants her support in the upcoming conflict over the succession. But unfortunately, she can't fulfill his wish. As he probably knows, the adults in the main family have to be impartial to the candidates. That's the rule. Chris replied that no, he was just making a sincere request. He just wants to get closer to his aunt. She wondered if he had no other intentions. Of course, if his aunt valued him and secretly offered to help him, he would not refuse. Marian replied that she was not disgusted by his honesty. Since her nephew had baked such delicious cookies and given them to her, she couldn't help but treasure them. But in response, could she get more cookies next time? Chris replied that it was up to his aunt. She asked, "Is Christian thinking about joining the Dark Shadow Knights? He'd been good in the duel with Melon. He might even be a greater prodigy than the senior clan head. However, his opponents will not be easy. She fears that he may fade before his talent is realized." Chris replied that if he couldn't get up and over the mountains standing in his way, he didn't mind dying. He certainly appreciates their concern, but Chris doesn't think he's going to lose. What unreasonable confidence, she thought. After all, he is a spewer. Marian can't stop him in his bloody tracks. However, let him be allowed to give him one piece of advice. Let him beware of the first young lady. Fear of Juliana, Ashid's sister? But is she not the gentlest child of the 5 young lords? The Earl asked. Marian replied that he would figure it out for himself later. Chris thanked his aunt and said he would keep her in mind. Looking at her nephew, Marian said they would see each other next time. Father and auntie both powerful. After all, they reached the 6-star level. But the guy hadn't heard of them during the Great War. How many powerful fighters are there in the Empire? There should be enough to at least defeat the Rule of Light. But Christian absolutely does not want his past to repeat itself. He has to become stronger. When Christian appeared before his father, he asked if he had called him. The man replied that yes, he had something to tell his son. But looking at his son, his father was clearly surprised, for he had reached the 2-star level. Such a result in just a month. Chris asked why his father was surprised at that he had promised. By the way, why did his father call him at this late hour? Is it something important? The Count said that he had heard from the main family. He presented him and Turn as candidates for the sacred dark rite, but they only approved Turn. The reason is because of his frivolous spending, lewd adventures, drunken destruction of property, and even theft. And that's all true, but how dare they look down on his son? Chris asked if it was Viscount Langham who made that decision. The Earl replied that no, but the Viscount had nothing to say after Ashid's transgression. Loin de Baron, he is a direct descendant of the main family and the star of the upcoming sacred dark rite. This is a ritual during which the candidates accept pure darkness from the negative dimension. As there is a limited amount of it, they engage in a deathmatch. Higher-ranked candidates take more darkness for themselves. In the end, this plays a huge role in the selection of the young lord, the candidate to succeed the clan. If Loin is victorious and monopolizes the darkness, it will be more difficult to become the 6th young lord and achieve his goal. Dad said not to worry, he talked to him again. If it didn't work out, he would ask Marion for help. Chris told his father that there was no need for that, he would take care of it himself. The Count knows his son has talent and that he's a changed man, but the kid can leave it to the adults. Christian appreciates his father's feelings, but he has his own methods. His father asks if his son already has an idea. The boy asked if there were any children of Count Tyramine among the participating branch families. The father replied that yes, Count Tyramine's third son would be there. He just needs to prove them right. The Tyramines should be hunting for the black pill soon. Christian decided that he would participate in it as a shepherd. She told the head of the clan that, as ordered, she had personally checked on Christian. The man asked, "And how is he?" Marion replied that he was incomparable to the others. He found it hard to believe. The kid the chapter remembers was a brat who thought he was a genius, when he was just a false prodigy. She told him that he was clearly not what he used to be. The head replied that, in that case, did she believe that this child could fulfill his long-held wish? His last wish, which is why his father continues to live, even refusing to die by magic that tramples the heavens. She can't assure, but he may be the closest to what he desires. The head said it's interesting, thinks he'll keep an eye on him. Is his participation in the upcoming sacred dark rite unlikely? Will she interfere? She replied that no, she couldn't interfere over such a trifle. How could someone call himself a ferocious beast without being able to overcome such a minor challenge? He may be a ferocious beast, but he is still a child. She believes he should be given the opportunity to receive the darkness and fulfill his potential. He was always that kind of man. He was always harsh on those he placed his hopes in. The head said that since she was willing to go that far, she must really like him. The man invited the bloodsucker to join him. This is Simon, the head butler of the Dark Mage clan. The head asked, he had heard everything, hadn't he? Simon replied that yes, he just needed to watch the little bastard, young Master Christian. The man replied that that was exactly what he was doing, waiting for a report on what he was doing before the sacred dark rite. Simon replied that as my lord commands. She hopes the baby comes through safely. Thanks to his talent, he quickly reached 2 stars, but despite all his training, his stamina and dark energy reserves would no longer be enough. He can't become a 3-star in his current state. He needs a black pill to accumulate a lot of dark energy in a short period of time. The Tyramines, the masters of the black pill hunt, happened to start feuding with him. What luck. The problem is that catching the demonic beast Karahoff doesn't automatically guarantee you'll get the black pill. Seeing the young gentleman, Grantel asked what brought him there again. Chris asked how he was doing. Looking at him, the boy asked. Grantel didn't come empty-handed, did he? The man replied that he would never have welcomed a gentleman without a gift. Seeing the money in his hands, Chris said it was a pathetic gift. He doesn't seem to know his place. Could heard Grantel's doing some illegal stuff? Casino tax evasion, is it lucrative? Have the man get an ash pill for Christian. Grantel replied that they had recently gone up in price in the dark market. Kneeling down, the man said he would get everything right away. Chris asked, isn't it so nice and easy when he's willing to cooperate? By the way, while he's there, have him get him a dagger sharp enough to cut through armor. Marie asked the young gentleman if he was heading home. Chris replies that no, he has one more place to visit. Afterward, the guy asked the coachman to stop right there. Looking around, the young gentleman jabbed his finger at the vial he wanted. Marie asked what he wanted it for. She didn't understand what use it had for an aphrodisiac. Christian said it wasn't for him, it was for someone else. Marie asked if it was for the Count. Given his father's age, Christian has to take care of him. The boy shouted to the salesman that for the honor of the Count, the man should keep it a secret. Upon seeing Christian, Turn called him brother, but the guy reminded him that his brother should call him by his title. He said that he heard hunting for the black pill is dangerous, so please let him be careful not to get hurt. His father suggested that the boys stop squabbling between the brothers and then asked Christian to remember to rub the bastards of House Tyramine's nose in it. The guy said sure, then added that he'd be sure to come back with good news. Turning to Turn, the man asked what were the words spoken earlier. The boy replied that it was better for his father not to know. He repeated again, the young gentleman is forbidden to enter the Count's mansion. The guy asked, how dare he say that after they waited there the whole time? Does he even know who the man is? He replied that it was young Master Aloysius' orders. He does not want to repay his debt to a talentless bastard. Christian asked, with those words he dares to say that a guy should be looking for his own place to live? Chris asked, what about the payment for the lodging? He replied that the young master could send the bill to Count Tyramine. Looking around, Christian said it wasn't often that they could spend other people's money the way they wanted to. He gave them an hour to put their luggage in order, and afterward they would go drinking. I think he heard something. Marie appeared in front of his eyes. She immediately started talking about how great this mansion was. Seeing her, Chris asked what she was doing there. Marie told him that she hid inside his luggage, because she promised to be his maid for centuries. Seeing how shy he was acting, he seemed to miss her a lot. Presenting himself to the young gentleman, Alois, the third son of Count Tyramine, asked, "What is this bill?" Chris asked, wasn't that the main character in this hunt for the black pill? Since he told him to find a place to sleep, the guy did, wasn't there something wrong with that? Since this honorable man can't stay in a simple hotel, he just bought a nice mansion. There's no way he's so angry about money. Considering he's a pathetic person who doesn't know how to treat guests, the guy figured it was a pretty cheap price for teaching him good manners. Alois asked with an angry face, "Did Christian want to meet death in person?" The Art of Submission by Count Tyramine. Unlike alliance taming, the art of submission is a dark magic that binds and controls the demonic beast through fear. They are secretly laced with formulas that paralyze the demonic beast's mind and cause it to hallucinate fear and excitement. However, it's all a lot more complicated than the guy thought, so learning it all in a short period of time is not going to be easy. He asked Marie to exterminate that scary kitten. He'd probably need a gun. Christian asked for what he was worth. Could he start the offense like a true fiend? Alois shouted for the boy not to dare order him around. Christian yelled that it wasn't that bad, but 2-on-1, isn't that cheating? He said it wouldn't work that way. If Chris won, he'd have to participate not as a shepherd but as a guard. We need at least enough to make ends meet. Calling the young gentleman an insolent son of a bitch, Alois shouted that he would definitely make him kneel. As soon as they started attacking again, the guy noticed that the young lord had disappeared. Alois didn't realize where he'd gone. After delivering the blow, Christian asked, "Does it really hurt?" He shouldn't be crying even if it did. Because he's not going to be nice to him just because he's crying. Christian didn't hold back. Alois asked, how dare he do that to his Choco? The guy replied that he was only using a 2-star illusion spell. Apparently, it was too difficult for his pathetic subduing art. Chris asked if the guy knew what the trash bastard trait was. Alois didn't know what he meant. They will never wait to transform or cast a spell. The boy asked the young gentleman was he sure he could do it? Chris replied that there is still plenty of time. He rests when the opportunity arises. What's wrong with a worthless guy playing the way a worthless guy should play? Marie agreed with him. The young gentleman was drinking apple juice instead of alcohol, but no one knew about it. Watching him from the sidelines, they didn't understand why young Master Alois wanted them to look after such a bastard. Turning in their direction, the young gentleman asked why not join them at the table? He's sure their master won't wake up until tomorrow since he beat him to a pulp. Chris will keep it a secret. Watching from the sidelines, the men realized that they were indeed unlucky. There was no point in continuing to watch them. They decided they'd better go and make a brief report for now. As soon as Christian realized they were gone, he immediately stood up and grabbed his things. He told Marie that he had to go somewhere urgently, so let her not follow him. Marie knew he had the aphrodisiac with him. She thought so, it was for the young gentleman. She's sad that she won't be able to join them, but she'll be rooting for the young lord's nightly entertainment. Christian didn't understand where did this maid even get such fantasies. After arriving at the right place, Chris realized that it was where Count Tyramine's secret land was located. The energy of the demonic beasts there is very dense, just as his reputation suggested. Chris realized that it wouldn't be long before he reached the hunting ground. He pulled the branches aside and saw that there were only 2 guards at the gate. Good thing he'd learned the invisibility spell from Marie. Walking stealthily past the guards, the boy saw the very altar where the final hunt for the black pill would take place. The rumors weren't lying. It's a pretty creepy place. But that's not the problem. Chris asked Lena how he could get the black pill. She told him that he had to get Karahoff to offer him his life. In other words, he has to make him so scared that he'd rather die. It's like opposites come together, intense fear and radiant joy are on the same spectrum. In that brief moment, the useless ash pill changes to a black pill. That's why Count Tyramine's house, which specializes in subduing demonic beasts through fear, is leading the hunt for the black pill. As Lena said before, he plans to steal the Tyramine's ultimate technique. Let Karahoff go wild by getting him drunk on an aphrodisiac mixed with various substances and take the black pill for himself. But there's not enough time to steal their tech and study it. Chris has to find another way. He could tell at a glance that it was barrier dark magic of the highest level. Christian recognized the very spot as it turned out to be the cleft of Gehenna. Gehenna, the demon world. To think there's a crevice connecting it to the human world. What if Christian lures Karajov in? He's got something to lure him with. He was so excited he couldn't wait to hunt. As soon as Christian left the cave, Simon appeared. He hadn't expected the little bastard to be so interesting. Not only did he beat up the Tyramine brat, but he even made his watchers let their guard down by acting like a lowlife. He also managed to sneak into the restricted area, plotting something. This makes Simon want to play an even worse joke on him. Christian asked Aloys if he thought he was acting too cool for someone who had been beaten up by him. The guy yelled for him to shut up. He's the one showing off. Why did he bring the grenade? He doesn't even know how to use it. Christian replied that a sword is clearly more effective than a club. Does he really want to try it? Anyway, the shepherds can go ahead. Let them begin to lure Karajov to the altar. Those charged with guarding him, let them follow him. They will stand at the altar. Aloys shouted for the bum to answer. Christian replied that, of course, as soon as he wished. The guy asked him to go to the hole because Christian was interfering with the hunt. The boy replied that he didn't mind doing nothing, but just don't let him come crying to help him clean up after he poops the bed. At this point, the boy was getting angry. Aloys asked him not to wear himself out before the hunt even began. Christian will see how hard they try. They're just walking into his trap. The guy felt it coming. Karajov, a 4-star demonic beast. Christian, I don't understand. What is it? Why does he look like that? One of the boys asked if Mr. Aloys was ready. The guy asked him to make better use of the art of submission. Attempting to subdue him, it failed. The demonic beast struck. Running up to the young master, the guy asked if he was all right, after which they used a protective formation. Christian realized it wouldn't work because this thing was out of control because of the aphrodisiac. Aloys said they had taken the antidote ahead of time, but it would still be dangerous if this dragged on. The guys decided to end it all quickly. Just as Karajov began to attack a second time, Christian intervened. He said that Earl Tyramine's house is quite pathetic if a busy standard bearer is forced to intervene. The guy would be kind and help him out if he promised to call him Big Brother. Aloys replied that he was just crazy. Christian asked what he was going to do. He doesn't have time for everything in the world. Aloys yelled for the damn bastard to help him. Christian replied that okay, but he'd better keep his promise. The guy didn't understand how Chris used the art of submission. Calling them fools, Christian asked, did the guys really think they were the only ones who could use it? If it's not a secret technique, but something like an intermediate submission art, nothing. Saddling Karajov, Christian headed straight toward the cleft. The boy asked, this is the first time he's seen the wrath of Gehenna, right? Right, let him be afraid. Once Christian had straightened out Karajov, the rest of the guys showed up. Aloys shouted to the young lord that this was a dangerous cave. They needed to hurry. Christian replied not to be such a wuss and then asked what they should do. Turns out it wasn't a black pill but an ash pill. The guy started yelling. What was he going to do? If Chris hadn't intervened, this wouldn't have happened. Suddenly, Aloys thanked him for saving his subordinates. Thanks to him, they finished without serious injuries. Now he's a little uncomfortable. The guy is even worse for having switched the black pill. But still, Chris has to do what he has to do. He answered Aloys that, then let him call him Big Brother. The guy became indignant that he never made such promises, plus he's 2 years older than Christian. Suddenly, a demon from Gehenna appeared in front of them. He shouted that he hadn't seen toys like this in a long time. Christian's attention was once again drawn to the bat, which was not the first time it had caught his eye. As soon as he killed her, Simon thought about when the guy had time to notice her. He planned to stop the demon by watching for a while. But now that the bat clone he was planning to use for teleportation was gone, it would take him at least 5 minutes to get there even if he used blood magic. If he comes too late, everyone will definitely die. He wondered what he was up to. Chris just doesn't like it when someone tries to peek at him. If he were to compare him to the demon he had encountered in the Age of Destruction, he would be a low-ranked demon. But at least he's a 5-star. He's not someone Christian can face right now. Chris looked at Aloys carefully. The boy asked, what is he doing? The guy replied that he had a strong resistance to magic. Aloys should stop talking and get some sleep. The monster asked, was the guy really going to offer them to him? In that case, he would spare his life and even personally bless him in exchange for these human sacrifices. Chris replied that he talked a lot. It's his principle not to negotiate with the likes of him. Monster, seeing Grenade's sword, said the idea was commendable. But a holy sword he can't use is just a piece of shit. Grabbing his hand, the monster said he was giving him chances, let him offer them to him. Then he would spare his puny life. Christian asked, who told him he couldn't use that sacred sword. The monster didn't understand how a fiend like him could harness the power of light. Christian shouted that he finally felt his life was in danger. After the monster shouted that right now and would kill him, Christian only uttered one thing, a light cutting through the Dead Sea. The monster kept repeating that it couldn't be and Christian was able to destroy it. He must have pushed his body too hard. Christian collapsed to the ground. Did he really see his light cutting through the Dead Sea and replicate it? This guy is definitely unusual. It literally means a single flash of light that divides the Dead Sea. But this is ironic. Despite using the sword technique, he failed to become the light of the Meyer clan. Chris is sure to be the light that saves the world. The only thing she said was that her name was Mefina, the first place of the seventh realm of Gehenna. She looks forward to his actions in the future. His head, to think he'd been there for 2 whole days. However, his body seemed to be perfectly fine. The boy immediately remembered the black pill. It's great that she's still with him. Anyway, it was Mefina. He got some unwanted attention. Occasionally, perverts who stand out early get the demon's blessing and can get pumped fast, but why should he care? That's what gets the bad guys. He understood that a 7th world demon couldn't even be of such a high level. Count Timorin came in and said he heard the guy woke up. How's his body? The man said it's okay, the guy can stay down, just let him listen. He began to tell me that yesterday they had organized an investigation team and checked out the cave. It looked like someone had tampered with the magic circle sealing the entrance to Gehenna. Fortunately, it looks like it was a callback. But as fleeting as that moment was, it was more than enough to get everyone killed. Do they believe it was a callback? Makes sense, since it would be hard for them to even think that Chris extinguished it. Since he doesn't have to make excuses anymore, that's a plus. He said he'd like to start by apologizing, though. May he be forgiven for communicating so poorly with him, using only rumors that he is good for nothing. He is the benefactor of the House of Tyramine. Chris replied that he wasn't at all. As a member of the Dark Mage clan, he just did what he had to do. They are family after all. If there's anything he can do to help, let him know. If it's not something impossible, he will definitely do it. Christian said he hoped House Tyramine would get rid of old grudges against their House Kassar. Instead of their current adversarial relationship where they constantly bared their fangs at each other, he would like them to have a friendly but competitive relationship where they could plan for advancement together. Something that fits the fact that they're blood relatives. Guy's sure the Count knows it himself. The reason for the enmity of their 2 houses is because of the behind-the-scenes work of the main clan. If the families work together, from the perspective of the main clan, they might feel threatened. It's a scheme to keep them as mere dogs. The Count asked, is the lad proposing to rebel against the main clan? Christian replied that he has no such thoughts. He just thinks that they should not be moved by what they think is right. The Count replied that this was the first time he had ever had to contact the Brat-ridden. That's right, if he united their forces like this, they would be able to create a much stronger front in the era of destruction. The Count asked why the son was standing there watching. He said he had something to say, too, didn't he? Holding out an ash pill to him, Aloys asked him to take it. When he woke up in the cave, she was lying on the floor. Since the boy showed no signs of waking up, he took care of her. Christian said that if the guy was so grateful to him, he could give more stuff if he wanted. Laughing, Count Timorin replied that since the guy said he was grateful, he would give him a gift. He told me that it was a summoning stone that could store a demon beast up to rank 4. The Count would still make a report so he could partake in the sacred dark rite. The man wished him well. As soon as the son and his father left, Christian asked, why doesn't he come out right now? Simon said, as expected, what he discovered was no accident. To think that he was able to see what even Count Tyramine couldn't. Christian replied that he just smelled blood. Greeting the young lord, the man said that he was the head butler of the Dark Mage clan, Simon. Christian thought, head butler, does that mean he's the henchman of the clan head? Hell, he's the master of the Blood Shadow Mages after all. Blood Shadow Mages, making no distinction between the Mage Empire and the Rule of Light, they are a group of psychopaths who enjoyed indiscriminate slaughter and terrorism. Their leader was an eruptionist who had reached the 8-star level, and at the end of the Age of Destruction he reached the 9-star level and became the 10th Demon King. He can't even count how many times they've almost died because of this leader. Not to mention that Simon is the blood and flesh of the King of Carnage. Simon said he never thought the young gentleman of Count Cassar's house would turn out to be so amazing. He's scared to even think that he could destroy the demon. Chris is sure he took care of the clone. Maybe he saw the light cutting through the Dead Sea. Christian replied that he had no idea what Simon was talking about. The boy said that it looked like the young gentleman was playing dumb. After visiting the cave, even the demon's corpse was completely destroyed, leaving no trace of it. It wasn't a callback, but a complete vaporization inside the cave. He was impressed with his skills. Could he please explain how he did it? Let him only consider what he was about to say would be reported to the senior clan head. Christian didn't understand why he should reveal his trump card to him. If the guy was the head of the clan and not a little nerd who wants answers to everything, he'd want a predator who hides his claws until the very end. Simon replied that the young gentleman was indeed an interesting person. Afterwards he asked, and more importantly, he wasn't going to apologize? Chris asked why? Simon replied that it's usually hard to distinguish between a callback and a total annihilation using only traces. That's why Count Tyramine misunderstood, thinking it was a callback. However, why does he think he destroyed it? Chris added that it's simple if you think about it. That's because the head butler would have summoned him himself. A demon summoning incident where a clan member almost died. What would have happened if the news that Simon had caused the chaos had reached the senior clan leader? Simon replied that fine, he would take responsibility, then offered to keep it a secret. Instead, let him remember that he now owes him a big favor. It would be great if he chose to understand it that way. Simon replied that well, he would not forget the favor the young master had shown him. He was glad to meet him, he hoped to see him soon. He would be counting down the days until his arrival at the main clan. Simon a man who has an important role to play in the Age of Destruction. Therefore, it is imperative that he connect with him in order to change the future. Marie told the young gentleman that she had finished her preparations to return home. Entering Chris's room, Alois asked, "Is the guy leaving already?" He just came to warn him. The guy said they were family. When he heard that, he felt that it was not good to do that to family. Alois said that the person who was most against his participation in the sacred dark rite was young Master Loin. Even 2 stars don't have the same latitude between the main family and the branches. The greatest elixirs, the perfect techniques of the main family, and the blessings of dark magic. The starting line for direct descendants is much farther away than where they, members of branching families, begin. He would be easy prey for them. Christian replied that he was warning his brother as well. Let him not take part in the dark rite to come. He says it is for his own good. Alois began to resent him for not letting him take all the dark energy. Christian said let him remember, whoever his opponent was, he would regret facing him in a sacred dark rite. Let him think about it and then he won't regret it. Then he told Marie it was time to go. Tern was outraged that his older brother had gone to the training cave immediately after his return. The man replied that he said he wanted to train alone before the sacred dark rite. Seeing his older brother, Tern shouted that he had promised to challenge him to a duel as soon as he got back, hadn't he? Christian realized that he had grown in such a short time. He's already an average 2-star, what rapid growth. That's right, he's also participating in the upcoming sacred dark ritual, isn't he? That won't do. Chris asked him to wait for now. They can fight after he finishes practicing. Brother should practice too. Tern asked, promising him that he wouldn't put it off. It wouldn't be the same as before, so let him be careful. The rite was exactly half a month away. He took a bite of the black pill, but he didn't expect it to be so bitter. It's more ebullient than the guy expected. Is it really the power of the light he feels in the black pill? Was the rapture that Karahoff experienced after his death part of the black pill? No wonder black pills are hard for the perverts to digest. But that doesn't matter to Christian. All that's left is the power of light. Usually, spewers expel this energy with the help of their teacher. But why should he let such a good thing go to waste? He will take it all into his light core. Simon told the lady that he had the investigative report she had asked for. During the hunt for the black pill, there was an incident where a demon was summoned, but it survived. Simon apologizes. The investigation was delayed because he had to look into this incident as well. If Lady Eidline has no further questions, he will remove himself with her permission. Knocking on the door, Turn told his brother that today was the promised day. Chris ordered him in. The guy asked, "Coming in the morning?" He's probably looking forward to getting punched in the face. Turn realized that his dominant presence was an order of magnitude higher than it had been half a month ago. The boy replied so his brother wouldn't make him laugh. Chris said that if he was so eager to try his fist dish, he would grant his wish. But if victory be his again, let him refuse to participate in the upcoming sacred dark rite. Turn asked what the brother was trying to say. Chris replied that as he knows, the rite is a competition. After which he added that weaklings should stay away from him. Turn yelled for his brother to shut up and picked up his sword. Christian replied that his brother was so blind to the fact that he was just showing brotherly concern. He thinks he clearly needs to beat his brother until he realizes it himself. His father told Christian that this time the boy had overreacted. The healer said he needed bed rest for half a month. Father believes he will have no choice but to wait for the next rite of passage. Christian asked his father if he could have some alone time with Turn. Heading for the door, the count said well, he would let them talk as brothers. Christian asked, what was he sulking about? Let him not be a whiny child like those goons from the Alliance. He had asked for the fight, hadn't he? Turn asked, does Big Brother really hate to see him grow up? He ridicules him and looks down on his accomplishments, and now he has purposely injured him so that he cannot participate in a sacredly dark rite. Christian realized that at this rate his brother was about to cry. Chris didn't think he and his brother were on the same page. He replied to his brother that he did it in hopes that he would become stronger for it. If he competes with him in the squad, he will forever lose the chance to get pure dark energy. He needed to do that because he's stubborn. But most importantly, pure dark energy doesn't suit him. His brother is more suited to gray dark energy. Just as the power of light is divided into different types, dark energies come in different types. Pure dark energy is the highest attribute of all dark energies. Immediately below it is gray dark energy, a type particularly suited for curse magic. Wasn't it easier for Turn to master curse magic than swordsmanship? His brother asked, how did Chris come to this? Christian replied that he drew that conclusion from the duel with him, because he too was giving his best. In any case, if he takes pure dark energy before mastering gray dark energy, it could cause problems when he later tries to master gray dark energy. Of course, it wouldn't be impossible as pure dark energy is a higher attribute, but it would be hindered by its unique properties. It will only slow down the process, and his brother knows he wants to get stronger as quickly as possible. Chris wants him to think it over again before he participates in the ritual. This is his sincere advice to him as an older brother rooting for his younger brother's development. After his words, Christian gave his brother a special gift, an ash pill. Turn asked why his brother was giving him such a valuable gift. The guy said it's because he's his little brother. What other reason could he possibly need? Turn said that if his brother was capable of such a change, why did he act like an imbecile even when his mother was dying? Does he have any idea how much heartache his mother went through because of him? Christian replied that it was simple, he absolutely didn't realize it at the time. Getting out of the carriage, Christian said he needed a good stretch, then asked how far they had traveled. Would it hurt them to open the warp gate? He couldn't believe how petty they were being. The main family restricted him to having one companion. He could only come with Marie as she is attached to him due to out of contract. Simon greeted the young master. People didn't understand why the head butler was greeting this lowlife. Simon said it had only been half a month, but he had grown more. Chris asked if the assistant clan leader had nothing else to do with his time. Simon replied that this was nonsense, for he was there at the behest of the head of the clan himself. He told Christian that the head of the clan would like to meet him in person. The boy didn't look surprised. Simon said he brought the young lord. My lord told Christian that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. The guy felt a very dominating aura. He could barely stand on his feet from the exertion. To exude such dark energy even though he knows someone of his level can't resist it. Christian greeted Duke Baron, the great head of the Dark Mage clan. The Duke asked if the boy was surprised to see him unexpectedly. Christian answered that no, he had expected the Duke to call him. The man asked why? Chris replied that it was because there was a new star in the clan. The Duke of Baron answered that correctly. Neither Marion nor Simon could contain their compliments, and yet he can't figure out if he should expect anything. As beautiful a seed as it is, only time will tell how it will grow in the future. It can become a sapling that will wither as soon as it sprouts above ground. Christian replied that the Duke was right, he was too small to meet his expectations. Only time will tell if the sapling will exceed expectations and grow into a large tree. Or maybe he'll even grow into an anomaly that would ruin even a great tree. At least Christian knows he won't disappoint. The Duke of Barina replied that this was excellent, he would have high hopes for him. The Duke told Marion that the lad had exceeded his expectations, but since he had such great talent, his destiny would be even more tumultuous. She knows too, doesn't she? The blood wind is blowing toward the magical empire. But today Duke Baron had a little hope. Perhaps this child really can fulfill his long-held wish. Servants announced the arrival of Count Cassar's eldest son, Christian van Baron Cassar. They didn't understand why the senior clan head would want to meet with such a fool. He looked like a scarecrow. Announced the arrival of the young lords and young ladies. The first young lord, that lunatic, didn't seem to show up. He wondered what Ashid would say now. To him, Christian, the victim of his little game that had tarnished his reputation. The bastard wouldn't even look him in the eye after all he'd done. The young lady Juliana walked past him. Christian immediately remembered his aunt's words. He didn't even feel anything special. He decided to figure it out a little later. He'd had enough for today. It was time to go back and prepare for the ritual. A voice was heard behind the young gentleman's back. The man said hello and then introduced himself. His name is For, and he is a summoner working for the young Lord Loin. He had heard that someone unworthy would be participating in tomorrow's sacred dark rite. The man worries that an underqualified participant could cause an accident, tarnishing the name of the great dark clan. Christian asked. He was trying to say that the guy wasn't qualified enough, wasn't he? The man replied that he just had to prove to him that he wasn't. Jupian, watching from the sidelines, thought that since he didn't like it, he should deal with it himself. Guy thought they could have a heart-to-heart talk during the ritual. Christian replied that he would prove it, sounding like it was just an inconvenience. Now let him show the young master his tricks. Does the man think a guy would use a gun to stand up to someone like him? First young lady Juliana and second young lady Jupian were watching everything from the sidelines. The summoner began by summoning the evil spirits. He shouted that now let the boy try to deal with the evil spirits he had summoned. But these evil spirits instantly turned on their summoner with a single gesture. The man didn't understand how he was able to gain control so quickly. Christian asked, was that the will of young Loin? How inappropriate for a direct heir of a dark magic clan. He should have challenged the guy to a duel if he had any complaints. Loin shouted that the incident had nothing to do with him. Christian replied that not even a fool would believe that lie, but he would believe him just this once. He suggested we meet again during the sacred dark rite. Cowardly idiot, he would be sure to teach him some manners next time. Alois asked, isn't the guy the least bit nervous? He even managed to make a fuss yesterday. The man asked if everyone was gathered. He is Sebastian, the second butler in charge of the main house. He would now lead them to the sacred place where the sacred dark ritual would take place. Alois asked, is it really underground? Christian realized that it wasn't. It is an illusory art that materializes in imaginary space. When they saw Sebastian speeding up, everyone immediately started shouting that they should hurry up because he was leaving them behind. It was strange to them, for they thought they had gone down underground. Then why is there such a steep slope? Sebastian shouted for them to hurry up. The earth wouldn't be able to support them forever. Some people almost at the start scattered because they were too slow. The man yelled that since they were late, he was about to speed up. Loin thought what losers they were since they couldn't keep up. These undeserving parasites don't deserve. Seeing Christian, the guy didn't realize how he didn't even break a sweat. Chris wondered if the guy was already out of breath. He only seemed to be barking, but not biting. As the direct heir, he should be better. Didn't they give him a bunch of different potions? These fools, because of their stupidity, only their bodies suffer. Running in illusory space is a waste of time. No matter how much Chris exerted himself, his stamina was not depleted in the slightest. Just one spell and he could become invincible in this place. Alois asked why the guy was unharmed. Christian answered that was why he should have trained his body more, not riding his beast everywhere. Riha greeted everyone. He began to say that as everyone knows, this is a sacred land where the purest of pure dark energies come out. Therefore they call it sacred darkness. Riha, the ruler of the sacred land. He greets the young lords and misses. Today, they will have to mine the great pure darkness. As a demon king rank 3 dark destroyer, the ancestor of the dark mage clan. However, there won't be enough for everyone. And the demonic beasts within will see if he's worthy. Christian asked, so what the man means to say is that it all depends on who arrives first. And if there is an unforeseen mishap between the participants during the ritual, is that a disqualification? Since each will go their own way, they should not clash. But if they do clash, they should avoid conflict. The more time they waste, the better it will reflect on the other participants. Instead, they should focus on their own safety. At best, they are inferior 2-star beings. To him, the superior 2-star, these creatures are nothing. Although he's sure that Christian is having a hard time. According to the rules, each path must have the same distance and the same challenges. However, Loin bribed the mage to only have stronger demonic beasts in Christian's path. By pure chance, Christian stumbles upon more powerful beast demons, and a tragic fate awaits him. Since any death that happened during the sacred dark rite is not counted, this will be his grave. Standing in front of the door to the sacred ground, Loin thought about what he knew would be first. Christian said the guy was late. What took him so long? He thought he would die of boredom from waiting. Loin asked how he'd gotten there so fast. Christian replied that there was nothing wrong with it. The guy replied that it couldn't be, there had to be much stronger monsters in his path. Christian replied that he thought they were at a higher level than they should be. So it was to his credit. Loin asked, what did he say? Who did he even think he was? Chris replied that they would be alone for a while. Is there any need for formalities? He called Christian an arrogant asshole. It's taboo for rivals to clash during the rite of passage. But the guy would crush him here and now. It was a magical martial art. A combat technique that blasts magic power at close range or incapacitates opponents by breaking their joints. Grabbing his hand, Christian yelled to just not cry if it hurt. Running over, Aloys saw 2 bodies next to Christian. He immediately asked, did the boy do it? The guy asked, is this now Aloys is going to faint? Or does he have to beat him until he faints? Aloys shouted that all this time he hadn't been sitting at home for nothing. Looking at the 3rd body lying there, Christian said he hoped they would take them if he left them there. In 5 years, the first big war against the Alliance will begin. Until then, he needs to get his hands on the Dark Magic clan. That's why Christian can't share even an ounce of sacred darkness with them. Now that he was done with the cleanup, it was time to take possession of the sacred darkness. Sacred darkness, the power to empower the outcast to become a true transcendent. The senior clan head, who was known to have absorbed 80% of the sacred darkness, one of the strongest among the demon monarchs. The Dark Destroyer also absorbed over 90% pure dark energy to become a demon king. So, if Christian could make 100% pure dark energy, he could surpass even a demon emperor. The men thought it was unbelievable. All but Christian are out, it's a disaster. Young Mr. Loin is in a serious condition. They were discussing if he was using some kind of trick? A forbidden magical instrument. A thorough investigation must be conducted to punish the culprit. The second young lady said there's no need for that. That bastard can't enter the sacred ground anyway. The fact that he hadn't left the sacred ground for 2 days must mean, unless it was the time it took to absorb the sacred darkness because of the amount of it, or he had already been crushed by the sacred darkness and died. The young lady said that even the clan head had hit the limit of absorbing the sacred darkness. She was sure he was already dead. And even if he does come back alive, she'll kill him herself. When her father died during a battle with the Alliance, Loin and she were adopted by their uncle, Viscount Langham. Since her position in the clan is already unstable, and since Loin couldn't get the sacred darkness either, no one will support her brother as the heir. She would repay him for this insult. The maids in the background were discussing that this lowlife wasn't out yet. This ghost is waiting for her master, but it looks like she will soon meet his ghost. Marie shouted that she would continue to wait for her master. But if they continued to make noise, they would be in trouble. The endless darkness that knocks the breath out of his throat is only 70%. It's harder than he expected. Christian must persevere no matter what. The real test will begin around the 90% mark. If he takes too much and exceeds his limit, his core will collapse and he will die there before the war even begins. Christian remembered the dragon's heart. It has the largest container for the core. If for a few minutes he could mimic its heart. Mefina appeared in front of him and asked if he needed help. Christian didn't understand. How did the demon end up in this space? Demon's power is to communicate with darkness. It's not difficult for him. She said she could help him in this case, no strings attached. Christian asked why she was doing it. Mefina replied that it was just a passing whim. Then she held her hand out to him and told him to let all the sacred darkness in. The Duke of Barina said he could hardly say he was still alive, for there had been no news so far. Such reckless greed, the girl thought, why would that be? Simon said Viscount Langham, acting head, also agrees with them. He wants to close the passage to the sacred ground as soon as possible. Will the Duke give the order? Barina called him a goddamn brat who wants to test the old man. The Duke asked if the bloodsucker thought that reckless child was still alive. Simon replied that the chances were probably close to zero. Whereupon Simon asked, but isn't he an interesting young gentleman? The Duke replied that he would have her tell him to keep the door open another day. Mefina repeated, let her take his hand before it was too late. Christian replied that he refused. Calling him a fool, she said that he should be well aware that people are not allowed more than they should. Chris said it looks like she forgot something. There was a demonization rite in the conceptual space. This is the ultimate technique of the mystic magic clan. A forbidden spell where a mortal temporarily transforms into a demon to develop explosive abilities. This technique is as powerful as it is deadly to the one who uses it. In the past, Lena died using this spell. Though, if he removes the parts of the spell that amplify dark energy, wouldn't he be able to use the rules of this world to his advantage to create an energy-gathering bowl without negative consequences? It worked. With this vessel, Christian would be able to overcome the 90% threshold and subdue all holy darkness. She couldn't believe that some insect, some pathetic mortal could transform her body. Didn't she know he was a genius? Mefina could stay there and he was gone. Christian wondered how much time had passed. About a week, he thought. There must be a hell of a lot going on in the family. Maybe he should play a little trick on them. Running into the office, the boy shouted that young Mr. Christian had returned. Langham de Baron ordered him to tell him everything in great detail. The guy said that even though his life hung in the balance, he still survived, but is in extremely serious condition. The healer said he could sense pure dark energy in him, but it was a seething mess. Looks like he'll have a hard time using dark energy in the future. What did they expect? They didn't expect this bastard to absorb more than 80% of the sacred darkness and deal with it. His greed ruined the sacred darkness for nothing. One of the men said they had an obligation to hold him accountable. Langham replied that he would take that under advisement. All may be dismissed. McField said he examined it immediately after the healer. Obviously the problem was in the core. Loin was to be the young lord. A sacrificial lamb, the key to their plans for the poison magic clan. The plan to kill him with the Jupian failed. His father had also taken an interest in him. One single fish disrupts the flow of the river. The man ordered Christian to be brought to the darkroom tomorrow. The man decided to announce Christian's impending exile in front of everyone. Christian realized that they were so desperate to get rid of him that they had even rounded up all these important bigwigs. Langham asked Christian, "Is the boy aware of the sins he committed during the sacred dark rite?" The boy replied that he knew. The man asked to tell what he had done. He told them that his peers were unworthy of being part of the dark magic clan. He should have beaten them harder, but he couldn't. Langham said that his mistake was that despite the fact that he had monopolized the precious resource of the dark magic clan, he never achieved the result. Christian asked what result they meant. They replied that the absorption of a minimum of 70% pure holy darkness. Christian asked if he can't absorb 70%, what is the penalty that follows? Langham replied that he would not inherit any of the dark mage's techniques. On top of that, he would be permanently banned from entering the main house grounds and denied inheritance of Count Khazar's house. Chris asked how his score would be measured. Even he can't seem to fully measure it. Ashid asked his younger brother what about his. Even though Christian's core was in complete chaos right now, when dark energy collided, the purity of the darkness absorbed could be determined. He absorbed 70% of the holy darkness after all. If Christian succeeds in overpowering him, wouldn't that mean he absorbed more? A clash of dark energy. A battle in which the superiority of one opponent's dark energy over another is determined. Both opponents give up the same amount of dark energy, and the one who possesses more will surpass his opponent. But when dark energies of the same rank collide, the one with the higher purity wins. In other words, it's the perfect way to destroy the core of the loser. And he's even more evil than Christian thought. But if he shows a result worthy of being recognized by everyone out there is asking for support. And let him pass the young lord's test. Ashid said he agreed to his terms. What difference does it make whether the one who is vying for the young lord's seat is a descendant of the main family or a side branch? if it is customary in the Empire of Magic for the strong to lord it over the weak. He told Christian just in case, but if he didn't have enough control over the dark energy during the collision, could damage his core. So, to match his rank, he's using a 2-star level dark energy. Of course, there will be a difference in purity. Christian replied that he didn't need to do that, and he had better worry about his own core. Ashid said after what he said, he couldn't wait to see what his dark energy was all about. The guy saw that Christian reflected his energy without even concentrating his own. Christian said, what a disappointment. He acted so arrogant, and in the end that's all he can do? The young lord decided to use a 4-star level dark energy. Christian decided to tell young Lord Ashid just in case, if he didn't have enough control, he might damage his core. The boy thought, isn't that enough? Christian thought, cracking his core. Ashid shouted, surrendering. Looks like Christian's dark energy purity is at least 90%. Overjoyed, Christian asked that now he too had earned the right to become a young lord. Langham replied that, as promised, the lad would be admitted to the young lord test, though no member of the collateral family branch had ever taken the test before. As the current head of the clan, he will randomly choose a trial for him. Christian realized that he was literally saying that he would choose the hardest trial for him. His skills will be judged on 2 criteria. First, he needs to prove his talent. He will then need to perform a feat befitting a young lord. Christian asked how he could prove his talent. The man replied, let him get the 3-star level in 3 months. The guy asked, is that it? He's a genius after all, doesn't think it would be hard. And then he'll look at what the guy has accomplished in those 3 months. Langham told Ashid that he was disappointed. The guy replied that it was his fault, he had underestimated him. His core has suffered because of this, Langham needs to deal with it soon before it becomes a problem. The man replied that let him not worry. They were well aware of why they tried not to absorb more than 70% pure dark energy. The higher the purity of the absorbed dark energy, the harder it is to raise the level of that very energy. In fact, it is exponentially difficult. So even reaching 3 stars will take much longer than others. So what does he think is in store for him now that he's absorbed 90%? No matter how brilliant he is, he can't overcome that wall. Ever since he left behind the bloody clan that wanted only his death, there was blood everywhere he went. But then he met kindred hearts filled with warmth. And Marie, who had been waiting for him. For waiting, he'll reward her. If she wants, they can go for a walk together. It's good to relax once in a while, but he needs to make it to the 3-star level in 3 months. It won't be easy, even under the guidance of the side branch family mentors. However, putting 90% pure dark energy alone is too difficult. Marion said the way she looks at it, the guy is still hanging around and causing trouble. She wondered if this was the right time to stroll carefree through the garden. Has he found a teacher to help him with his training yet? Marion told him to follow her. Christian doesn't know what she's thinking, but thanks her for helping her nephew find a teacher. Miriam replied that she didn't think he should thank her. He'll know when he's experienced it firsthand. He's tough. Besides, none of her brothers could stand up to his lessons. That opportunity won't come again for him though, so let him work hard and don't disappoint him. Christian told his aunt that it looked like this child was lost. As Christian got closer, he said they were joking. His aunt asked him to show respect and say hello. As it turned out, it was the incarnation of the clan head. Christian immediately greeted him. The head said his accomplishments were impressive, however. He should know that it was stupid, Christian knows, right? As someone who has attained 80% pure holy darkness, he faces obstacles much more difficult than others. Even their progenitor would never have been able to reach the stage he had reached without the grace of His Majesty the Demon Emperor. He can't even imagine the obstacles he will still face on his journey. So if he wants to, man will return some of his pure dark energy to the ether. With that kind of talent, Chris can handle 80% dark energy. Anything beyond that is greed. Christian asked to be frank, and let me ask a question. What does the clan leader think? Why has the dark magic clan become so weak? Although they might not reach the level of a mystic magic clan or those called the heavens above the heavens, they are still considered the weakest clan of the 12 noble clans. So what Christian is saying is that there's a specific reason. The dark magic clan had certainly succeeded more compared to their previous generations, all thanks to the achievements of the clan head. However, the other demons say that they members of the dark magic clan are no longer the same as they used to be. There's a reason for that. The thing is, they lack people of the absolute level, those who wield power above 8 stars. In the future, when the Demon King Carnage attacks the Dark Magic clan, Nordion will already be dead. And there won't be any 8-star mages left in the clan, but only a few 7-star mages. They will lead 10,000 soldiers against the Demon King, but will eventually be defeated and forced to become his slaves. That's how important it is for a clan to have mages of 8 stars and above. There's no way that the senior clan head doesn't care about this. The guy understands. They're worried he won't be able to grow up with that percentage of pure dark energy. But don't they wonder if gaining this power will remain just an important step on the path to rebuilding the clan, or if it will overcome all challenges and will become the master of limitless power? The head said that he spoke beautifully, however. He hopes the boy will not regret his words. Suddenly, he finds himself in the woods. His ordeal of survival begins now. Marion asked the clan head, is it too much to throw a 2-star child into the lair of a 4-star monster? The head asked, did she really think it wasn't enough? After that, another monster appeared. He has yet to encounter true natural pure dark energy more than once on his journey. When you're on the verge of death, your head starts working faster. The clan head just hopes that this guy doesn't get hurt too badly. The man doesn't know why, but every time he uses dark energy, he craves sweetness. After eating the sweets, the head decided to see how his grandson was doing. A 2-headed bear and a stone lizard. They could break his bones with a single blow. One mistake could cost him his life. But in the end, it's just a training mission. Christian doesn't think the head of the clan would have given him an unanswered assignment. Marion realizes that the head of the clan would have given such a task. Are they trying to tell him that he has to figure out for himself how to defeat a monster that is many times stronger? The girl thought that no, he just wanted to see him suffer. Christian shouted that okay, it would still be the easiest thing to do. Such tremendous power and speed. But there must be a way to counter it. The head said that he definitely had talent. His movements are completely different from others. Marion said it's really true, but he's just a kid. From what they saw, they wondered how did he manage to catch it. Christian said that as they know he has high physical strength and defense. He tried to attack him, but his agility and resistance to magic are weak. The guy took advantage of the gap created because of that. In that split second, he injected dark magic into his heart. They didn't realize what it could be? Marion asked, isn't this the same technique the clan head uses? Christian remembered that he had one more monster left. This lizard has 3 hearts of stone. The stone lizard would revive until all 3 hearts were stopped at the same time. Maybe he should try a different approach. Wait, that's using the dark death, isn't it? The head told Simon he couldn't see, so he'd better let him step aside. The head asked if Marion had taught him that. She replied that no, it wasn't something that was so easy to learn. As soon as Christian showed up, the head told him the guy was better than they expected. The boy told the chapter that it had been a great lesson. Thanks to him, he was able to understand the use of dark magic on his own. The head replied so Christian wouldn't be so arrogant. Now they will proceed to the training of dark magic. The head ordered the others outside. They immediately withdrew. Before the first magic class begins, what does Christian think dark magic is? Guy asked, isn't that controlling your opponent with perfect darkness? The head asked the question again, then what was the perfect darkness for him? Just as the head thought. Let him look carefully, open the seal, for all darkness dwells there. Let him go and only go. When he descends the deep stairs, 12 abysses await him. The head began to cast an incantation. O ravens seeking wisdom, accept her, praise her, swallow your host, shrouded in darkness. A conceptual blade that only cuts what it intends to cultivate. It is a power energy, a black sword created with dark magic. The head gives him exactly 1 month to hone the black sword he just showed him.